One was my personal interest. I was a teenager in the 70s, and it was just interesting to watch. But as I said in my last video, I also always had a little, not a little, but I had a kind of a revulsion response to Danny Masterson, who was the character Hyde in that 70s show. And also because I was aware that the victims, most all there was 3 women that prosecuted, and 2 he was convicted on of rape and drugging them. And almost all the victims, as I'm Jane 1, 2, and 3, Jane Doe, mentioned if they'd only listened to their intuition, they knew. One woman said she'd met him in a bar. There's a Hollywood Hills bars that he used to go to. And he somehow got her number and started to call her. And she just knew right away. She had a horrible feeling because he didn't even hide it like a lot of really crazy people do. He was just, I want you to come over now, come over now. You know, he was being demanding and weird. And then again, in this girl's case too, her friends were saying, oh, he probably is just so scared of you that he doesn't know how to talk, you know, which could be true in some instances, but her gut knew. And she overrode it, you know, partly it was her friend's influence, and partly, you know, women are conditioned to be polite, to not, we don't want people to feel bad. And so that, you know, took over her life, and will continue to, she'll be continuing to heal from that for decades. But my point was, I had talked about psychopathic individuals. I wasn't necessarily saying he was one. He had a lot of the qualities. He didn't have all of them. I don't know any more than I was, you know, speaking primarily about using your intuition and your gut. And I did speak about psychopaths kind of in the same vein as when I was talking about Danny Masterson. He definitely has sociopathic or demonic qualities to him because he seemed to have no emotion in court. The 3 women who he drugged and raped had said he did not display any remorse, you know, before, during, and after. So this was kind of methodical, robotic for him, which is a sign of a psychopath. But he could have been a sociopath or other things. But my point was, I said in that video, there are some people that say you cannot detect a psychopath because, and I said it as well, they can act more human than humans because they copy the good traits in humans, where humans are very, you know, we're emotional, we're sad, we can grieve, whereas they just act, you know, the perfect victim, the perfect this, the perfect that. And so some people say you can't detect them, but that is not true. You can detect them because your gut, and I mentioned gut instinct, but I didn't say what it would feel like. There's a lot of different feelings depending upon sometimes how your guides work with you, how you know your body. But generally speaking, I have like a knot immediately, and I can feel it. It can spread too to this feeling of numbness. You can feel coldness. It's also a little bit like the Death Eaters in Harry Potter, where you feel like all the joy in the world is gone. Actually, that's a really good way to detect a psychopath. If you suddenly feel a sense of hopelessness, yes, that all the joy is gone, that you're in this stillness, and it's not a good stillness. It's a cold, and it's not like weather cold, because weather cold can be a nice cold. It's like a death cold, a deathly cold. And so you could come in contact with the psychopath and you could feel this, but then they go away and you start to feel better and you're like, what was wrong with me? Good. Yeah, and I wanted to make the sound better in this one than the last one. And so it's not you, first of all, it was them. And don't forget it. Don't ever forget that feeling, because that was real. So those are generally the feelings. You can lose your thought. You can forget what you were going to say. You can start to feel really tired because they're usually right away starting to drain your energy. tired, weak. When I feel, sometimes my legs get a little shaky, especially that's usually if I'm standing on a ley line on the earth that's contaminated, or I go into sometimes I go into Walmart. I hate to say it, but there's definitely something under there. My legs feel a little weak, or they're not there kind of feeling. So your body has all kinds of ways to tell you when you're in danger. It's not just you're a fire, don't walk into a burning building kind of feeling. It can be really deep and really subtle, and you could be standing in front of someone that seems like the most wonderful person in the world. They're actually too good to be true, and you're going to feel like death, like a cold deafness, and that's a psychopath. And I keep talking about this not because I enjoy it, and it's not what I focus on in my regular life. I do mostly healing work. I love to surround myself with flowers and nature and crystals, but none of those things will work for you if you don't know the basic principles of staying safe. Why spend 30 years like I have healing from a psychopath when you can just take 5 minutes and avoid them? So I just wanted to clarify. I had said you can identify when you're confronting a psychopath by the way you feel, but I didn't really explain in detail. And so I think I've made it really clear now what you could potentially feel if you come into contact with someone that would be like a psychopath or a sociopath. And yeah, it takes 5 minutes. No, walk in the other direction, and you've saved yourself 30 years, and your children, potentially your family, because they don't stop. Kirby Summers, she wrote The Billionaire's Woman. I think it's Woman, Billionaire's Girl, Billionaire's Woman. She was sex trafficked to somebody high up in the political world. She won't name him, but she says he knows all the presidents and even former presidents. And she said psychopaths don't stop. They don't stop. So she, she's still fighting off this perpetrator, even though she's not physically enslaved by him. He's always after. He's always trying to. There's been several assassination attempts on her, as there have been on me and other people who tell the truth. So they don't stop. So take 5 minutes and listen to your body. And no matter what your friends are telling you, your family, no matter what the tarot says, what anything says, trust your body, and you avoid a lifetime of pain and suffering. So the other thing I wanted to clarify, I had briefly mentioned, and this was tied into trusting your gut, owning your feelings, being in your power center. I had briefly mentioned Paul Burrow, who was the former butler of Princess Diana before her passing on August 31st, 1996. And I mentioned him because he said something I thought was really profound to her once. I mean, many times. He was considered her rock, and that term was controversial. Her family didn't like it. How could a lowly butler be Diana's rock? But a lot of her close friends confirmed he was a very stable person. He was a confidant. He was not just her butler. And he wrote a book about it called Royal Duty, which I really enjoyed and I thought seemed very authentic. And so anyway, she called him apparently often, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, just to check in, to get some stabilizing, talk about plans. But she called him when she was on the yacht with Dodi Fayed the day before she died. I think it was called the Jonikel, Jonikel. It was belonged to Dodi Fayed's father, Mohammed, and Dodi had invited Princess Diana onto the yacht, and they had been sailing, or whatever you do on a yacht, boating, yachting. I don't know what you do on a yacht. Off the coast of Sardinia, and she was calling Paul for a couple of reasons, according to Paul Burrow, according to Royal Duty, his book. And this one particular time, I believe, according to Paul, she was on the yacht. She was maybe outside on the deck, and she was not happy in a couple of ways. She said it was freezing inside, it was boiling outside, it was freezing inside, he had the air conditioner way up. I don't think the English, and I'm including myself, are really into air conditioning the way a lot of people are. And she was very uncomfortable with that. I think she had said that, he was, or she inferred that he was doing drugs. It was just not her scene. She wanted to get back to London. She wanted to see her, she desperately wanted to see her boys. She wanted to get back to Kensington Palace, her home. And he said, and this was the night before she died, and he said, very wisely, because it would not have been wise to criticize Dodi, even though she was doing it. And Dodi Fayed was her lover at the time. He was an Egyptian billionaire, or son of a billionaire. He had just, to be with Diana that weekend, he had broken off an engagement with American model actress Kelly Fisher, which I find really strange. There's a lot of things, of course, very strange going on at this time. And so the reason I'm even talking about this is because I'm writing a book about Princess Diana. And so I've been researching all of these details. And it does all tie into mind control and intuition and targeting and directed energy weapons and the CIA. So everything that I've been researching my whole life and that I've lived ties into her life and her death. So I bring up Diana, Princess Diana, because she's very much on my mind all the time right now. And part of it is like spiritual connection to her, and also mental, because I'm always writing about her. And then I'm researching and writing and researching, writing, and then I feel her presence sometimes. And I just read Spare, Prince Harry's book, which it was really surprisingly good. So where was it? Okay, so she was on the yacht the night before she died. She called Paul. I think she called him several times already. And he said very wisely, be in control of your environment. And I thought that's such a simple statement. But if all women adhere to that, I mean, if you just look around, am I in control of my environment right now? And I have to say, there's a lot of women and children that do not have control of their environment because, especially children, they have been sex trafficked. They're in situations where they're controlled by very evil people. There's a lot of satanic families that children are born into them just for sex trade, and there's no way out. There's the families are affiliated with police who are involved, judges that are involved, religious leaders, politicians. So it's like they're in the center of this haze of hell, and there's no way out. So I'm not talking expressly to those people who are born like Kathy O'Brien, um, Ray, oh my God, Wallace, um, Jeanette Archer. There's more and more survivors of satanic ritual abuse coming out and speaking. Some of them are speaking against the royal family even, and specifically Jeanette Archer has been very, very outspoken about the abuse by the royal family. And you can find her on supporting survivors of ritual abuse on Facebook. Her name's Jeanette Archer. She just organized the first international conference on healing, or just revealing the existence of satanic ritual abuse, and it was in England, and it was the first ever. And so she's very active, and she did a protest outside, believe it was Buckingham Palace. So I'm not revealing anything that's not already out there for Jeanette or Kathy O'Brien. She wrote a book, Transformation of America, and Ray Wallace has a YouTube channel on BitChute and YouTube, and she's talking about all of this. So I'm not, of course, saying to young girls or young women that are in satanic families who have been ritually abused to be mind controlled. That is a whole different subject. I'm talking about your average woman who is out there who has had the mind control, or men, imposed upon them by society that says, be good, be nice, don't trust yourself. I'm basically talking to the more general public about listening and responding to your intuition and saving yourself a lifetime of pain. But anyway, he said to her, be in control of your environment. Now, he did, and I said wisely, he did not criticize Dodie, which, by the way, was not the love of her life. In fact, the love of her life, according to Diana, and I believe Paul Burrow and others, was Hasnat Khan, a London heart surgeon. And in fact, they had just had a major argument, Diana and Hasnat. And I believe it related to, he did not want to go public with their relationship. And that triggered Diana, or any of us who have lost our mother early, through matricide or anything, alcoholism, divorce. Once you're cut early off, you have abandonment and fear issues for most of your life. I mean, even I still do, and I'm working on healing every single day. So her reaction was to, in a way, like a lot of women do, like, oh, you don't want me? Well, I know somebody that does. And of course, the photographs of her on the Jonical yacht were instantly across the globe. So we all saw her with Dodie and on the ship. And anyway, she was coming out of that sense of, oh, I'm going to show them. And she was more like, I don't really want to be here. I don't want to be here. I want to get out of here. And she had put herself in a kind of trap, which we can do when we're acting out of fear, or which she was fearful Hasnat was abandoning her. And so she reacted, and at first, I'm sure there was a great high, but then I believe she was spiraling out of that. She just wanted to get off the yacht. She wanted to go home. She loved her little garden at Kensington Palace, and of course, her boys were the love of her life. And as Harry so aptly said, probably Harry and William were the only two men that truly deeply loved her, and they had a very, very close bond, of course. So if she had said, or just thought, yeah, I'm not in control of my environment. I started this spiral running, from fear of Hasnat Khan not loving me, not wanting to be with me. And then how did because I've done it 100 times, probably most women have, probably men too. This channel is a little bit focused on women, maybe. So if she had, because he also told her, this is another thing Paul said to her butler, wherever you are, I will come for you. I will come for you and I will get you. Go in the ladies' room, get on your cell or mobile, they call it, and call me and I'll be there. So she did have a way out, but she would have had to, I think, and this is another whole story, break a whole bunch of mind control. Plans set up for her through, I believe, the CIA, MI5, I believe the Royals. Even I think the British press was in on these plans, because they were publishing headlines. Diana ought to just shut up, and Diana this and Diana that, because she had spoken out about landmines. And so the British press, so she had actually said to Paul, or one of her best friends at that time, maybe I ought to just wait until it cools out in London. The headlines are, a little more tempered, or things have calmed down. So that was another way she reasoned she wasn't going to go back. But and I also think a lot of us women, like, I'll get out at such and such a point. There'll be a moment in 24 hours, I'll get out. This is not good, right? This is not good, but I'll wait, because I'm going to get out. I'll give them a little bit of time, or this will be the perfect time, or this. And again, it comes down to no, if you're not in control of your environment, if you're uncomfortable, don't wait, do it now, because something much worse could be coming down the line. If you're having this wonderful dinner with somebody you met, or a person, a guy, whatever, and you're like, well, I'll just spend this night, or I'll just get, no, go now. Like, goodbye. You don't owe them anything. And that's what we all think. We have to be polite. We don't want them to come. Well, if Diana had said, because a lot of us can't get out because we don't have the resources. We might not even have gas money, or we might not have, money for a hotel, or if you're trying to get out of a situation, even a business meeting, a date, or a family thing where you're being abused. Like, a lot of women just don't have extra resources. Diana had all the resources in the world financially. And she had a lot of really good friends that she could trust. If she had said, I want to be in control of my environment right this second, she could have, Dodie, I need to leave now. I need to leave now. And he would have said, no, no. He wanted to get her to Paris. He wanted to give her this ring. He wanted to bring her to the Ritz, show off, the Imperial Suite. She was like, anyway, it is upsetting. So she could have said, no, I need to go. Everything he said, she'd have to keep saying no. They say, well, my father just lent us this $25 million yacht. And she said, no, everything. So she would have had to go through a litany. What about the paparazzi? They'll think we broke up. That'll be all across the headlines. I don't care. No. I want a helicopter. And she could say that. I want a helicopter. I want British security, because she had this ridiculous security. She had no security, basically, by the time she reached Paris. Or their security, Dodie's, it was ridiculous. It was a setup. It was a complete setup. So she could have kept saying, no, 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 this I want. And yes, 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 I want money. I want money, brought to me. I want a helicopter. I'm going. I'm leaving. There's something. She didn't even have to say what. She would just say, I need to leave. I need to see my boys now. And then she would still be alive, unless the setup to kill her was such that MI5 or CIA would have just blocked every single path out, because it was a setup. It was a ritual. It was a ritualistic setup. But Diane had many, many more resources than your average satanic ritual survivor. So that was my second thing, because I just briefly mentioned about Paul Burrow, her butler, saying, be in control of your environment. I just thought, wow, that is such a great advice for all of us. Not tomorrow, not in 10 minutes, not when you graduate from college, or, all these, now, because there's an opening. If you're thinking about it, there might not be an opening. You could get pregnant, or, the opening, like for Diana, the opening it was gone by the time she reached. I mean, there were certain points, but by the time she landed in Paris, she was surrounded. God only knows by who else besides the paparazzi. Video footage outside the Ritz when her and Dodie were leaving showed unknown persons. There wasn't just the paparazzi, so there was other individuals watching her that remain to this day unidentified. So that's just a lesson for all of us. Don't wait till tomorrow to follow your gut instinct. It could be too late. Be in control now. Are you in control now? Right this second is I think what I'm trying to say. Be in control and take action if you're not. She knew she didn't want to be there. And she was just saying, oh, I'll give him 2 more days, and then I'll let the press die down in England, in London. but that was rationalization, and we all do it. We all do it because we just don't really want to make people uncomfortable, I think. And she was going to make Dodie pretty uncomfortable. And here he was broken up with his fiance, Kelly Fisher, which is quite strange. So Russell Brand, yeah, that's a really hot topic now. And I'm not looking to go on about this. I will say again, I had a gut instinct about him and I kept overriding it, especially when he started to be like a truther. He wasn't just political, like I'm a Democrat, that's what I am. I don't care about the truth. He seemed to be navigating towards truth, whether it was right or left. And I started to admire him, although my head was admiring, my gut was still. And then one of the ritual survivors, and I'm not going to say which one, even though she made a public statement, it was a public statement on a thread, on a video she was doing. So the people in that thread, in that chat, were like-minded, protective, understanding. She, because people were asking her, she's a satanic ritual survivor, abuse survivor of the royal family. And she came out in that thread and said, someone said, what about Russell Brand? And she said, no, he's just one of them. He's one of the abusers. And if a survivor says that, I'm generally going to go, okay, that's who I'm going to go with. But I don't just take her word. You know, I also say, well, yeah, that's, in that case, I said, yeah, that's why I don't like the way I feel when I look at him. I just get this yucky feeling. And so after I learned that in that thread, I stopped watching him completely. And so now with, I think it's up to 10 accusers, I'm not surprised because of that revelation by that survivor of satanic ritual. And when she said, no, he's one of them, she meant he's into Satanism as well, which means I won't even get into it right now, but it's probably worse than is being exposed right now. But right now there's 10 women, I think it is all women, that have come forward, and I haven't followed it. Although it's being called the biggest story in the world right now because Russell Brand had 6 million followers, which is more than most of the leading news sources in England. I think it's they're taking down their own now, probably because he's coming out with some truth. They're going to say, okay, that wasn't part of your contract. You were supposed to keep up with all the lies, and you do not get out of these contracts alive. So I think it's not that one side's good, one side's bad. They're both bad, and they're just going after him because he's broken some of their codes or their rules, or they've got blackmail on him, and the whole system operates through blackmail. So I would say that his days are numbered as a YouTuber. I don't know. Beyond that, for some reason, I'm just not. I'm getting sick of, which side are you on? So again, even some of the leading YouTubers, which is why I'll never get monetized, because they'll use it for clickbait. Which side are you on? This side, it's like, trial by media. So it's just one way to divide us again. Oh, you believe Russell Brand, or you don't. And they did the same thing with Johnny Depp and Amber, and it goes on and on and on, whether it's the vaccine. So I don't want to get into sides in that. And that's what it seems like it's about. And this YouTuber's just frothing at the bit, trying to get clicks because they're talking about Russell Brand, but it brings everybody down to the lowest common denominator. I don't talk about things because it's exciting to talk about people being destroyed or getting caught. I sometimes talk about the subjects to enlighten women to how you don't get involved with these situations, and you go on and you have a happy life and your children are safe, because your children will be victims too, and your family, if you get involved with psychopaths and people like Russell Brand and Danny Masterson. So as much as I was happy when what's this Russell Brand started to talk what I felt was the truth, I still had a really bad feeling when I looked in his eyes. I did not. And then when this ritual survivor came out and said he's one of them, again, I knew it wasn't just one of them that abuses women. It was one of them, the worst them there is, which is the Satanist. So I stopped watching him when I heard that. I think it was like about a year ago. So none of this is surprising. Again, it sort of winds into my theme. No matter how popular, how famous, how rich, how intellectual, because he was a great intellect. I loved to listen to him use words. He had an incredible vocabulary. No matter what, you've got to trust your gut instinct, because that is connected to universal intelligence. And it goes way above what you think, for sure. So the final thing I want to say, and this is a little hard because it's personal, is on the last video, I think I named my one of my perpetrators when I was a journalist and I was a whistleblower, and I was exposing sexual harassment, environmental damage, using faulty parts. And I didn't feel like I was an activist. I was just like, oh, this is the truth, so I'm going to write it down. So I was a whistleblower to a company, Bath Iron Works. It's owned by General Dynamics, which is a huge weapons testing. So they have been after me ever since. And General Dynamics at the top, I'm sure it's psychopathic. Another reason I know this is I watched Dr. Catherine Horton for a long time. She's a physicist and specialized in systems analysis. And she analyzed statistically how psychopaths have made their way to the top of most major institutions in our world right now. So they are hitting tens of thousands of people with directed energy weapons. 70% are women. So I think it's just an extension of the witch trials. If you're outspoken, if you're spiritual, if you're intelligent, and if you're pretty, and you don't go along with their agenda, which I didn't know I wasn't. So they have still not just, they are still after me. And I got hit pretty hard with directed energy weapons the next night after I said General Dynamics, because I'd never said their name before. And I'm not going to show you all of it, but I do have, you can see, I'm not going to go too far down, but that is all radiation. And they hit me in the back when I was sleeping, and I could feel it, and I felt it before, and I know how to get it out. So I did this acupuncture, I think it's called scruffing, where you just pull up the toxins. So this is actually what and it's all over this breast, these red, huge red blotches. So as I said in my other video, I am always healing myself, and this is a Chinese thing of rubbing to bring out the radiation, and it looks really bad, but I know it's getting out of my system. So sometimes I think targeted individuals, if they watch it, they think, oh, why isn't she talking about getting hit, or, because I'm mostly living on a level of joy because of my shamanic world and the different dimensions I can access. But yes, it is still happening to me. It is still happening to thousands of people in the West. They are weapons testing on Americans, non-consensual testing. It goes against the Constitution, the Nuremberg codes, and on and on and on. But there is psychopaths at the top of the military, in case You didn't know. And if you're in the military and you don't agree, it's because you've been compartmentalized. They're not going to tell you. If they think you're not as crazy as they are and they need you for other things, they're just going to compartmentalize. And that's another whole subject. But it took me out for a couple days, really. But I'm okay. I'm okay. And that's another whole subject. I might do a whole video. I did write a book, The Land of Broken Crystals, which is about how I was gang stalked, targeted. My two daughters were targeted in the beginning of the directed energy weapons. And that's called The Land of Broken Crystals. And that is available in most major book outlets. You can also email me if you want a signed copy. It's $24.95 and $5 for shipping. And I'll leave my email below. That was it. I thought it was going to be a lot shorter than that, but apparently I have a lot to say. So anyway, thank you for watching. I know I'm like a really interesting or very strange combination of loving energy and I don't think the targeted people really get the shamanic part, and the shamans definitely don't get the targeting. I will say one of my teachers, Sandra Ingerman, said, yes, I've heard of this before. And then if you add the other stuff, I'm just a really unique combination of energies and information. But I hope my goal is to heal humanity, to bring us back to a paradise Earth, which we all came from. And these people, they're not even people, keep stealing it from us, over and over and over. They keep enslaving us until we all wake up. We all have to wake up, so we don't have any more assassinations. That's what they do now. They could just assassinate people who talk about it, that have a high amount of people watching it, like Princess Diana knew, and Martin Luther King, Seth Rich. I could go on and on and on. If everybody wakes up, they could try to kill everybody, but they're going to have a lot more trouble. So we all need to wake up to what's going on this planet. So thank you, and I will be back again. I think I might do more talk about my workshops, flower essence, Reiki, and my healing that I do. But I just feel like facing the dark is part of healing for our planet. We have to face what's going on to the children and the women and the men that are also being targeted. I know there's a lot of men on my Facebook page that are getting tortured every day. All kinds of men, black, white, young, old. They don't care. They don't connect. They do not. They are lacking completely in empathy, which is another reason I identify them as I do. So happy equinox. And again, I know those are not good days for survivors of ritual abuse, but I just want to remind you, the Satanists do not own the earth. They do not own the changing of the seasons. It is Mother Earth. It is her power. It is her love. They are simply using her like they use children and like they use women. But the earth herself is a being of love. And the changing of the seasons is an empowerment. They understand the energy, though, and they use it. But I want to reclaim the earth and her powers and her seasons and her love and take it away from them. But I do understand rituals go on at the equinoxes and the solstices and the high holidays, but we need to reclaim those energies for us, for humans, for love, and for empowerment. So I will say happy equinox and lots of love.